On today's video, I'll be showing you how to solder correctly. You can see here we already removed the problem area that we were having with this pipe. This is due to some bad soldering. You can see here it just started to leak. Obviously we used our pipe cutters to remove it. So you want to have the basic tools to do your soldering. Basically you have your sandpaper so that when you're using the solder onto the pipe, you have a nice clean surface. Here we have our brushes so that we can clean the inside of the fittings so that when we do apply the flux, it'll have a nice clean surface. Here we have our tank. You can use the MAP or the propane, whichever you prefer according to your budget. And then we have our tip for our torch. This is a self-lighting tip, so when I put this on, it'll light it on its own. If you don't have that tip, you can use any type of source to ignite the flame. You can use a little lighter, one of those lighters to light it yourself. Obviously we have the solder, and then here we have the flux. Make sure you have a nice clean brush when you're applying the flux to the pipe because you want a nice clean fitting. You don't want to put any contaminants into the flux when you're trying to solder. Sandpaper, don't be too abrasive. You just want to give it a nice clean surface. I usually do it about up to here, but just give it a nice clean surface. You don't want to be too abrasive or too rough. That'll just cause issues when you're trying to use the solder to stick and connect your cup link, or for this instance the end cap. You can see here we use the sandpaper and we basically cleaned out the surface area of this pipe. Nice clean rag, and you want to clean the area that you just sanded. It may look clean to the eye, but you'll be surprised all of the dirt that comes off. End cap that we're going to be soldering on, and just make sure with your brush that you clean it inside. And you're basically just trying to clean the inside of your coupler so that when you put the solder, it has a nice clean surface. And then once we do this, we're going to clean this as well. Now we're going to clean the inside as well. Again, if this was a coupler, you'd be doing the same exact procedure. Here we have the flux, and we're going to apply the flux to the outside of the copper pipe and to the inside of our fitting. The flux will help when you're soldering with your torch to reduce oxidation. Slide your fitting or your coupling onto the pipe and then just kind of clean it up, and then you'll be ready to start soldering and heating up with your torch. Now here's a few tips before you actually start connecting your couplers and your piping. Number one, make sure that there is no water coming out of the pipe. If your pipe is sitting parallel or horizontal, make sure there's no water coming out, even if it's a drop, because what happens is as you start torching the pipe, the water will actually start to cool off the pipe at the same time, and when you go to solder, it will not stick. So make sure, number one, that there's no water coming out at all. Make sure that there's no water dripping. Even a drop will cause issues when you're trying to solder. Number two, make sure you properly clean and prep your fittings and your pipe for soldering. Now, when you're ready to start soldering, start at the bottom. Remember, heat raises. Start at the bottom. When you're heating, don't do it right here, like on the fitting, the connection itself. Do like right here on the side, and that will allow this to heat up. So when you put the solder, you get a nice clean seal. You'll see the flux start to melt, and then we're going to start from the bottom. Once you get the bottom, go ahead and start working your way around the pipe. When it's cooled off, I've wiped it down with a cloth, and you can see here I checked the connection, and we have a nice tight seal.